everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, when Lawrence Kasdan originally wrote this script for Diana Ross and Steve McQueen in the 70s, I bet you he didn't think that this movie was going to, take decades of actually making and ending up being the second most successful movie of 1992. By the way, a fucking amazing year for movies. Not only did it catapult Whitney Houston from a big star to an absolute mega star, it also shifted about 5 metric tons of soundtrack albums, and it also catapulted Kevin Costner into the absolute stratosphere when it came to his movie career. The problem is though that this movie was a big ball of absolute nothing. I saw it back in the 90s and thought it was a big load of nothing, and I didn't really care about anything of this. But when I watched the movie for the purpose of this review, not only did I discover that A, this movie was about as boring as it was the last time I saw it, but B, this movie was a lot dumber than I remembered it, so it had that going on for itself. Let's find out why this movie is so terrible, shall we? This is The Bodyguard. Frank Farmer. By the way, we have to stop for a second and talk about names. In a previous review, I alluded to the fact that the name of your character matters. A name like, let's say, Dale Putley is not the character, who has a big guns and gets the girl and shoots bad guys. He's the comic relief. Frank Farmer sounds basically like the porn parody of The Bodyguard, which actually has a better plot than this one, but we're not going to talk about the booby guard right now. That's what the internet is for. But in short, you could say this: Frank Farmer is a former CIA agent or something like that, Secret Service I think it was, and an associate of his sets him up as the bodyguard of a actress/singer played by Whitney Houston, who is about to maybe win an Academy Award for participation in a movie we never get to see or hear from, but we mostly see her sing and stuff like that. He doesn't basically want to be the bodyguard of Whitney Houston, because Whitney Houston basically, thinks that this, the threat that she's under is a hoax, and there's nothing to worry about, and she doesn't want to, have a lot of security around her and stuff like that. And her publicist, who basically has a PhD in assholery and douchebaggishness, basically has the same feelings. He doesn't understand show business, and he thinks that she doesn't understand the concept of safety and security. Of course, we do know that there is a creep that is, stalking her for some reason, and will he be able to protect her from this weirdo, and what's his motive for stalking Whitney Houston? We shall see that also. But of course, the main thing about this movie is the fact that she starts having feelings for him, but he rejects it, mainly because that if he takes his eyes off the object of who is supposed to guard and start boning his boss, that would put her in danger and all that good stuff. But he's also a lonely character who needs somebody in his life, and will they end up together? Will she survive this? Will she win the Academy Award? I don't care. Now, the biggest problem with this movie is spelled Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. Before this movie, Whitney Houston had never starred in a movie before, ever. And being for the first time on a movie set, it's gonna be tricky, especially if you don't have any experience, in acting. She is a fantastic singer with the voice of an angel, but unfortunately for us, she's going to have to speak. An obviously very bad decision for this movie, because she is terrible. She is woeful. It may not be entirely her fault, but she's just so unlikable that she would have easily become the Divas champion before that monstrosity of a belt was ever unveiled to us WWE fans. Jesus Christ, that belt. Anyway, the other problem this movie has is, of course, Kevin Costner. I ragged on Kevin Costner before. He is a mixed bag. And sometimes when he's cast in the right movie, he's totally okay. Not fantastic, but totally okay. But if he's cast in the wrong movie, this is a complete and utter dumpster fire we're into. And also, they have anti-chemistry on the level I don't think I've ever seen before. Not necessarily that they're, rejecting each other. They are lighthouse on different islands that will never meet. And you never buy into the love story. Also, thriller and romance very, very, very rarely mesh up together. The next problem this movie has is the villain. This is the thing that is going to, stitch this movie together. But our interactions with the villains are almost none. They're non-existent almost. I almost doesn't think that we have a villain in this movie. I think the villain is the story itself and how unenthusiastic we are about any of this because we don't care. Because the villain rarely makes an appearance. Still, it is a letter here, a letter there, a break in here, a break in there, but it doesn't lead to anything. And then things get stupid because they decided to throw in what I think they thought was a clever little twist in this movie. Spoiler alert, it is not a great twist. It is the opposite of a great twist. It is a terrible twist. Not only is it bad to the point of it being almost as stupid as science. When the aliens invade Earth but are allergic to water and can't get through wood, on a planet that is made out of, water and wood. You stupid ass motherfuckers. Anyway, the twist is stupid. And then it leads to a lame and uninteresting finale at the Academy Awards where, the predictable thing happens. And the thing was that it wasn't too bad when I rewatched it, but then I started thinking about it. So this twist had this happen and this happen and this happen and this happen. And then I just started thinking too much. And when I started thinking too much, I discovered that no, this movie is actually very, very, very bad because of its horrendously bad, awful finish and its horrendously bad, awful twist, which deprived this movie of any of the suspense it kind of had in small little bits and parts during this entire big ball of nonsense. The Bodyguard is essentially a classical early 90s cheesy thriller fest, but I don't care about this whole thing because we don't know anything about their villain. We don't know anything about, the motives. When we know about the motives, it makes no sense. Because if you're taking a movie that was made in the similar time period in The Line of Fire, the interesting thing wasn't, the president. The interesting thing was the security guard, played by Clint Eastwood, and his interactions with John Malkovich, the would-be assassin of said president. The president is not important. These two are. This should have been the focus of this movie all along. You're having an evil villain that wants to kill Whitney Houston regardless of reason. And we should have a stern, good bodyguard that is going to protect her even though he doesn't like her or she doesn't like him or whatever. And the interactions between, the bodyguard and the assassin should be the focus of the movie, not this hokey, bad love story that does not work. Would it have worked better with Diana Ross and Steve McQueen? Well, Steve McQueen is by far a more charismatic and interesting actor than Kevin Costner has ever been, so Diana Ross, would she have been a better singer, actress than Whitney Houston? Survey says I would guess so. But if you've never seen The Bodyguard, I would not advise you to see it. It's really boring, it's really dull, nothing really happens, and when stuff happens, it is really, really uninteresting. And the movie's slow, the movie's boring, it has a great soundtrack. I mean, the songs are classics, even though I always thought that Queen of the Night didn't quite fit Whitney Houston as a performer or her character in this movie, but we'll let that one slide, it was still a hit. The ending was a bit, and the thing that should have happened didn't happen. This is one of these movies I think should be remade because the idea of the movie isn't bad. This was just badly execution because they got the wrong people to do the wrong things. This is not an ugly looking movie. It has some pretty okay production value. It has some pretty okay side characters. It does have the occasional nice shots and okay cinematography, and it is well produced, but it is also very, very dull and uninteresting, and you don't care. I would advise you, however, to see the many, many, many Indian remakes that has been made. They're actually better than the original. The Bodyguard may be a 90s classic, but I did not like it when I watched it, and when I rewatched it, I just realized that this movie is dumb and uninteresting and stupid. I gave this movie 12 points. I know that there's a lot of people who really like this movie. I understand why. This was not for me. It is really difficult to combine romance and thriller, and Mick Jackson, who directed this movie, is certainly not the man who's going to do it. If they would have had a better director, could he have done something better out of this one? Doubtfully, but maybe. By the way, Lawrence Kasdan, who has given us movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Empire Strikes Back, he's also responsible for this one. Thanks! So I'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.